Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Conversations, History Making Black Women. Coretta Scott King once said, "Struggle is a never-ending process. Freedom is never really won. You earn it and win it every generation." Tonight, we introduce you to a generation of changers. These women sit in positions and continue to advance equality and equity for all people in the area of health care, the right to vote, and the right to wear your hair any way you want. Two people on the front lines of this pandemic are heroes for a different reason. They're tearing down stereotypes, rising to positions of power, making decisions that impact thousands of patients.
So I am a frontline hospitalist. I take care of patients when they're admitted to the hospital.
What's even more, Dr. Kirsten Kennedy is Chief of Hospital Medicine at UAB, responsible for the strategic direction and operational work for patient care. We talked to her by Zoom, no exclusive hospital access behind the scenes because of the pandemic, but instead, Kennedy sharing intimate photos to chronicle her journey. We first saw her during a briefing for COVID response.
When COVID hit, we didn't know a lot about it. We didn't know if it was infectious like Ebola was infectious or if it's infectious like flu level infectious. And so we essentially had some heroic people that said, we'll go in, we'll take care of those patients, we will risk isolating, or risk exposing ourselves if it means keeping other people from being exposed.
It's not lost on this first Black woman to serve as Chief of Medicine for UAB, directing 115 doctors, nurses, and administrative staff, that she is uniquely positioned as African Americans and people of color are dying at a disproportionate rate from COVID-19 and other life-threatening diseases.
COVID just highlighted it. COVID just put a magnifying glass over it. I will often tell them, my expectation is that you feel the full weight of responsibility of providing excellent care to every patient, regardless of whether they look like you or not, regardless of whether they come from the same background that you come from. It's perfect that I'm here at this time to be able to influence the way that we care for patients. I feel very fortunate.
Before COVID, Dr. Kennedy was already making a difference, helping to standardize training and education for new doctors, writing the grant and getting it implemented to improve patient care.
And in the first 2 years, we reduced the wait time for these procedures from about 17 and a half hours when we were having to try to send them down to radiology to 2.2 hours, which is huge. I'm so thankful. I'm just honored to be here. I'm honored to be able to serve people. I'm humbled by the fact that I'm in a position where people come in on their worst day. And especially in times of COVID, we cannot understate how hard it is for people to drop someone that means so much to them off at the ER and leave them, because on our COVID units, you can't have visitors. And I take that really seriously. When I'm on the COVID unit, I call those families every day because I want them to know that somebody cares about their mom or their dad.
And to so many of us who know that pain.
And I understand it more than you know. I too lost a family member and, we were not able to go in and see him before he died. And we weren't even able to have a funeral. And I don't know if people understand that loss is so significant, but I'm thankful for it because it changes the way that I practice. I show up at work differently because I know what it feels like to leave somebody that means so much to you at the ER and just hope that there's somebody in that building that's going to love them the way that you love them.
All of this compassion coming from the doctor who almost quit medical school.
I thought, oh my God, I've made a mistake. I'm in the wrong place. And even as a trainee, my intern year, I joke and I tell people nobody tried to quit residency more than me. Like I tried at least once a month. Like I just felt very overwhelmed. And, I went into it to help patients. And it in many ways, it felt like more than one person could do. But I think learning more about quality improvement and leadership and health administration really invigorated me and gave me a greater interest in medicine and a new way that I could impact people. Whereas when I'm clinical, I may only be impacting one patient at a time. When I create a new process that standardizes care, that helps thousands of patients.
In this picture, you see the man who would become her biggest influence to become a doctor while she didn't know it as a baby. And in this picture, the last time she saw him alive, Uncle Dan,
who was a general surgeon, and he was literally the first Black person that I ever saw that was a doctor.
From uncle to mentor.
And he really just sort of shepherded me along the way. And that's why mentorship is so important to me, because you can't be what you can't see. And so I want to be visible. I want, little Black girls to see me and know that they can do that too. There's nothing magical about me. If I did it, they could do it.
And next, we're talking to the first Black woman to head up the organization, which gives voice to 100,000 nurses in Alabama. Dr. Lindsey Harris is Alabama's first president of the Alabama State Nurses Association, giving a voice to 100,000 nurses. Harris also receiving honors from the National Black Nurses Association, UAB School of Nursing, and Samford University.
I see a lot of letters behind your name. What's DNP, FNP, BC? What does all that mean?
So I'm a doctor of nursing practice with my certification is Family Nurse Practitioner Board Certified.
Wow.
But first, I'd like to say that I'm an RN. I'm a registered nurse.
And the importance of caring nurses cannot be overstated, especially through this pandemic. They are often the last face a patient sees before being intubated or before they die.
That is an incredible responsibility. That is an amazing service, but an incredible responsibility. I mean, do you feel the weight of that?
Absolutely. Many nurses are feeling the weight of it. I mean, it's very stressful at this time. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. But, nurses come to work every single day and they endure it. They come to work and they come to work with a smile.
And through her leadership, the Alabama State Nurses Association is now providing support for nurses through counseling and more.
We're creating a support group for nurses. So it's called a peer-to-peer support. And it is for those nurses who are on the front lines or anyone who wants to join, just to have a platform to discuss what they're going through.
And extending that advocacy, working to help underserved communities get access to health care.
The ASNA has definitely taken on that challenge. We're partnering with other organizations of color. And so the Hispanic Nurses Association, the National Black Nurses Association Alabama chapters, the Filipino Nurses Association, pastors, and this is going to be a statewide initiative to where we apply for that grant and try to educate and improve access to health in those communities of color.
Harris says as young as 5 years old, she knew she wanted to help people. Through high school, that meant community service, and then a student representative for the Birmingham Association of Black Nurses.
I feel like everything that I've done up to this point has truly prepared me for what we're doing now.
And next, the sacred right to vote, which people have suffered and died for. Tonight, our Brittany Dion talking to women who have been organizing the expansion of voting for over 20 years.
If only we're brave enough to see it, if
From women's suffrage to modern day, fighting for voting rights and civil rights is an ongoing battle. But according to the two women we spoke to, it's not history, but her story that's making a difference. Our Brittany Dion has more.
if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
This is the civil rights footprint.
I'm going down in old Birmingham. I'm gonna sing and shout and yell. And if they called a paddy wagon, I'm gonna sing and shout and yell.
If you search the longest war in American history, the war on racism won't be in the results. For more than 400 years, the bloody battle for equal rights, including to vote, has for some marred the picture of the American dream.
We've been doing the work all along.
The grind to uphold the right to vote, these two women, Commissioner Sheila Tyson, convener of the Alabama Black Women's Roundtable, and Katrina Norris Carter, co-founder of Salute Selma, are doing the work with little fanfare, but immense purpose.
We had to chase down voters all over again, and just not in one county, all over the state of Alabama.
Norris Carter, a native of Selma, tackling the rural areas.
Oh, it's even more challenging for us as organizers to get to what is arguably one of the poorest sections in this country, which is the Black Belt of Alabama.
In the middle of a global pandemic, they knock on doors, getting hundreds of people registered to vote. Tyson also targets jails. She says some inmates have no idea they're still eligible to vote. Norris Carter also focuses on grooming women to run for office. The fight for equality is still necessary.
Now, back in the day, we had to count bubbles in a bottle and all of these jelly beans.
They call it a rat race,
Every time we pass one hurdle, it's another one.
overcoming barriers.
Shelter versus Holder, when we lost Section 4,
Yes,
which
yep.
nullified Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, which basically killed pre-clearance. So before, after the 60s, you had to get federal clearance to change a polling place.
They did away with all of that, so you can change anything you want to.
You couldn't just change a polling place the week of or the day of, which they do. You couldn't, for example, these purging, they came up in the past 6 years where if you hadn't voted in 2 straight elections, they just purged you from the voting rolls. That couldn't have happened with pre-clearance. And people always say, what's the big deal?
From voter IDs to requiring driver's licenses, and then closing DMV locations in poor communities.
They closed down, they shut down 13 Department of Motor Vehicle Services throughout the Black Belt.
So we had to go
in the most rural places.
We had to drive and protest at all the counties.
Like 15
and you know what their
counties.
solution was? To put a lady in the car with a laptop for 4 hours, with a camera out the window, to take your picture, to register.
Now you tell us we gotta register, we gotta have an ID now.
And you close
and
it
then
up.
you shut down the place that gives out the ID.
On top of overcoming barriers, the pair says they're doing it with very few financial resources.
We worked in 40 counties. We could only get around to 40 counties because we did not have the finances to mobilize no more than 40 counties.
So it's of the most importance that sisters like Sheila and me and so many others around this state get the resources and the help that we need to continue trying to move this state forward.
America has stumbled time and again on its quest towards justice and equality.
Resources like Georgia activist Stacey Abrams received to help flip the state blue in the 2020 presidential election, ultimately helping elect President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, the first woman and person of color to be elected vice president of the United States. Georgia went on to elect 2 Democrats to the U.S. Senate, taking control of Congress.
They had 2 years, $12 million. Okay? You can do a whole lot with $12 million. Alabama, is no money coming into Alabama for organizing. And if it comes in, it comes in 8,000, 15,000, not 12 million. And then when it do come in, it's not coming into the organizations that's on the ground.
But they persevere.
What do you say to someone who is not registered to vote? You know the rhetoric out there is your vote doesn't count, it doesn't matter. What do you say to them? How do you get them encouraged?
Getting women to run for office as well as getting our community to vote is making them understand the power of the vote. I think by us taking civics out of Black history or taking civics out of our schools, some of our folks don't even know the 3 branches of government and how they work. They don't understand that where you live is important. You need to vote. Where you work, you need to vote. What you eat, you need to vote. All of those things can be legislated. And I don't think we understand that our way of life is a life that's ruled by legislation.
Is there anything to celebrate right now?
Yes. Look at the turnout 2020. We had a great turnout for 2020. We lost the state, of course, but
Heaviest turnout in history.
The largest turnout ever in history.
This is a historic year. I mean, are you kidding me? Black girl magic. One word, Kamala Harris. I mean, one word, Georgia. Taking the Senate, taking, the House. I just hope that this shows Alabama and America the power of the vote. When you say that your vote does not count, that is so not true. And I think Georgia is living proof that every vote counts. But we don't be fooled by the rhetoric that this stuff isn't still hard work.
The power of women, Black women, affecting change, progressing in spite of the many obstacles.
Black women are the leading voter in the state of Alabama. We are the leading voter in the world. President Barack Obama, when he did the study with Black Women Roundtable, he did the study of the state of Black women. That's when it came out. We were the leading in education, STEM education, leading in jobs, leading in CEOs of 5-star companies as black women, and heading all these households. No one never talked about it. They knew it, but they didn't talk about it.
They know now.
They know now.
Discrimination comes in many forms, including our hairstyles. You meet the women who are working now to end hair discrimination across Alabama.
Kinks, coils, curls, waves. The textures of our hair are as varied as the hues of our skin, and the hairstyles we choose to wear are a reflection of who we are.
Hi, my name is BB, and I love my hair because it's expressive.
I love my natural because it is versatile. I have to have options for my hair. I've been wearing sister locks for 18 years.
I love to change my color up from red, orange, black, maybe even blue one day, but I love my hair because I can wear it any type of way, any day.
I'm Tanya, and I love my braids.
I'm Sharifa, and I love my locks.
But as more black people embrace the natural strands growing from their heads, many realize the fight toward racial equality includes hair.
I think subconsciously, a lot of people don't understand the issues that we go through. A lot of people don't understand the invasion of our privacy that we get when we are natural. You'll have people that walk up to you and say, "Can I touch your hair?" And I'm like, okay, in what world do you walk up to a complete stranger and you just want to touch their hair?
At issue, hair discrimination, a form of social injustice targeting those with Afro-textured hair.
For me, it is an expression of who I am.
Many in the black community say they felt pressure to conform to a more Eurocentric standard of beauty after being told their hair was a distraction, unprofessional, unattractive, or even unclean.
I did have people frown upon me because the ignorance about locks is that when I first got them, people were thinking that you didn't wash your hair, there wasn't manicured, it wasn't good hygiene. And I had some clients and some associates to question my hygiene because of my hair, which I thought was just ridiculous and stupid. I'm like, so you think I do hair for a living, I'm a professional cosmetologist, and I'm walking around here with hair that I never shampoo, that is not kept, and bad hygiene. I mean, part of what I do is hygiene and beauty, so come on, let's be reasonable.
I have felt, that I had to straighten my hair, or that I remember Googling, asking my black female friends, what's more professional, box braids or singly Swiss? How should I wear it? And nobody should have to do that, because unless I'm thinking of something else or I'm just not remembering anything, I don't know any other race that has to think about what hairstyle they have to deal with.
Sadly, this form of discrimination isn't new, dating back centuries. And recent studies show black women are 80% more likely than white women to believe they need to change their hair to fit in at work, and were more likely to be sent home from the workplace because of their hair.
I feel angry because, number one, you cannot tell me why you sending me home because of my hair. I just got my hair done, so I know it's neat. I know it's pretty, and I know it look good.
So what is your issue with my hair? Because I decided to fix my hair in a different way other than what you're used to. And it's unfair, and it's just time out for discrimination. Since being a state representative of District 58, sitting in this seat, I think this job has put me more on my knees than any job I have ever had in my life, because you see so much. You see the blatant racism.
But this isn't just a workplace problem. Many schools have controversial dress code policies some say unfairly target Black children. In 2017, twin 15-year-olds Maya and Deanna Cook were given detentions when their school officials at their Boston, Massachusetts charter school determined their professionally braided hair was in violation of a school policy. The same thing happened in Terrytown, Louisiana in 2018 when school leaders at Christ the King Middle School expelled a girl because of her braids, saying the hairstyle was, quote, unnatural. And who could forget Andrew Johnson, the New Jersey teenager who was given an ultimatum: cut his locks or forfeit his wrestling match.
When they took him there, they knew he had locks. Who told them to pick up a pair of scissors and alter a child in front of the world like that just for a match? Somebody should have been his advocate.
I was floored. I understood he wanted to compete. I mean, I appreciate the fact that he put a lot of time, effort, and energy to be in that position, and he wanted to see it through. I was so mad that I felt like somebody should have came and championed that boy and kept him from having to cut his lock.
We need the Crown Act. But a movement to end hair discrimination is gaining ground across the country. The Crown Act, a law that prohibits the denial of employment and education opportunities based on hair texture or protective hairstyles like braids, locks, twists, or bantu knots.
What does CROWN stand for? Creating a respectable and open world for natural hair. And that title in itself is just beautiful. I think respect is the one word, just respect my DNA, my heritage, who I am as a person that I cannot absolutely change.
The Crown Act was created by Dove and the Crown Coalition back in 2019, ensuring legal protection from disciplinary action for certain hairstyles worn in the workplace and schools.
It angers me a little because this is 2021. Why do we need a bill for this? This should be automatic. I'm not gonna get emotional, because it rattles me. But we have to come up with a bill so for us not to be discriminated against our hair.
The Crown Act was first introduced in California and became law there in 2019. 6 other states, including New York, New Jersey, Virginia, Colorado, Washington, and Maryland, have also adopted the Crown Act or similar legislation. And many here hope Alabama will be the 8th state to join the movement.
To be an ambassador for the Crown Act, basically you are taking on the role for your city, seeing how you can push this organization, this grassroots organization, and how we can help here in Alabama. We're trying to establish a bill where you don't have discrimination against your natural hair in the workplace. I started on this bill, which this session is HB 87. And I started working on this bill, and I also got a colleague of mine who was an attorney. He started working on this bill with me because he saw the pushback that I was getting from this bill. This bill is called the Civil Rights Act of Alabama, which is also adopted by the Crown Act. We've gone through enough. And I think to me, with everything going on, I think this is the right time for this bill because it's time out for discrimination because of how we look, because of how we wear our hair.
We want to make sure that they hire you or keep you on the job because you are qualified, you have the credentials, you have the experience. Like, that's what should matter most.
We need the Crown Act.
For many Black people, hair is about self-expression. And for us, it's more than just a fashion statement. It's a symbol of pride and identity. So whether you choose to wear it relaxed, natural, braided, locked, or otherwise, it should boil down to choice.
Thank you so much for joining our conversation. Have a good night.